Hello everyone, I'm Mirella from Yoga Vibe. Welcome to the new episode of Yoga Vibe podcast. Today's guest is Adam Husler. He is a world-renowned yoga teacher based in England. Adam's teaching style is suitable for people who are looking for more than just pretty shapes. His classes combine a good balance between strength and flexibility on both physical and mental levels. Currently, you can find him teaching online as well in some of the top-level studios in London. Adam is a long-known friend of Yoga Vibe, and he has visited Bulgaria on a few occasions. There is an upcoming workshop, which we'll talk about a little bit later, so stay tuned. And let me say, welcome, Adam. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
No, thank you. I've missed Yoga Vibe and I've missed Bulgaria. I've been to Bulgaria, I think, every year for like 4 or 5 years. So I think 2020 was the first year I haven't been in Bulgaria for a long time.
Yeah, it's really nice when having you here in place. But let's first talk a little bit about your background. Whenever people are looking at your biography, they always notice this kind of unusual start for your yoga teacher. You started your degree in law in England, when you also seem to have started working in the non-profit sector. I will give you a secret while researching your background. Actually, I believe we might have been to the same university at the same time, because I graduated in the north of England at Durham University, right? Is that where you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Durham University was was where I studied law, and I was supposed to be a lawyer. But yes, while I was there, I started to work with young people, kind of in schools and in kind of young prisons, and I thought that was going to be my career instead. And then I did that for a few years. And on the side, I was teaching yoga not teaching yoga. I was doing yoga, and I was also boxing and running and lifting weights. So yoga's been there the whole time in some way. And yeah, so you went to Durham. What college were you at?
Yeah, there's just like some internal information, but I was at Hilton Beach, which is the biggest one. And I had a degree in physics. Started in 2009, and coincidentally I also did a lot of yoga at university, so it's really nice to see how small the world is.
Yeah, and Durham, if people don't know Durham is a wonderful, very, very, very small city in the north of England, and it's just beautiful. There's a big cathedral, a big castle, and it's one of the best universities in the world. And
actually,
it's really
it's very academically rigorous. People don't know it outside of England, but it's one of the hardest universities to get in and to graduate. So, well done. And how did you, from such a bookworm studying law and probably being awaited by a very well-paid, lucrative career in law, how did you start actually working with people, trying to help people in all the different ways with an NGO?
I never really wanted to be a lawyer, but in the school I went to, that was your choice: law or medicine. They're your two options. So I ended up doing law, but when I was there, I studied, but not enough. All of my time was either doing athletics and boxing, or working with young people, or drinking beer and lots of alcohol. That was how I spent most of my time. But I never really planned to be a lawyer. But then after university, because I enjoyed working with young people, I thought, can I make this a career? And I thought, this is going to be my job. It's not going to be a lot of money, but I thought, I want to be the best at this. I want to run a charity. So I thought, if I can manage a charity in 10 years' time, I'm still going to earn good money. Not as much as a lawyer, but still earn good money. But while I was doing the charity work, I did eventually my yoga teacher training. And at one point I had a job that was about 60 hours a week, managing a charity, actually. And it was a very busy job, but I was also teaching 10 yoga classes a week. So
Wow.
60 hours of work plus 10 hours of yoga. And yeah, busy. Then eventually I left the charity sector and I thought, I don't want to be a full-time yoga teacher, but while I'm working out what to do, I'll teach yoga fully for the next year. And I ended up helping manage a studio. And then suddenly I had 23 classes a week. And I thought I quite like this. So I carried on doing it. And yeah, the rest is history.
Wonderful. You made a good choice. You have quite a rigorous sports background, though. You mentioned that you played boxing and ran ultramarathons. How did these sports actually add to your yoga practice when you started working more in your yoga?
I think it's the other way around. I think yoga really helps sport. So I did yoga for a long time, but there was a point where I moved back to Birmingham and I was doing yoga and boxing every day. And I noticed that my boxing got better thanks to yoga because my body was looser. This isn't what yoga is for, but I could punch people harder because I was looser. And also when I was doing the running, of course, it really helped with recovery. So, the yoga on a physical level really actually helped my sport and recovery. Of course, at the time, there was a lot of mental benefit as well to my yoga practice and a spiritual practice as well. But it certainly helped my sport. And I think for a lot of people, when I try and persuade them to try yoga, that's a reason I give. It will make it's a lovely antidote to life. If you do sport, it will increase performance. It will help you recover. If you sit at a desk, it will open your spine. Of course, that's not the only reason to do yoga, but it's a good way to persuade people to begin yoga initially.
Yeah, it's a good point. When you are teaching yoga as an instructor, who are you as a teacher? What do you want to give people the most?
So I'm not looking for people to have a happy, joyous experience. I want people to have a practice of self-inquiry. I want them to learn about themselves physically and mentally, and I want them to connect with themselves. And for me, by connecting with yourself, you can really start to connect with something more than yourself. Like the thing we all have access to is our bodies. Our bodies are the most intimate way to connect with the universe. So I think it starts, if we can't connect with ourselves, we can't connect with something bigger. So that's what I want. But as we use asana as a vehicle, I want people to learn about their bodies in a safe way. So I want people to get strong and flexible. I want them to have a practice that is safe and sustainable. I'm not interested in people looking good. I'm not interested in people being happy. I want people to have an educational experience that is safe and useful.
Yeah, exactly. I attended your past workshop on back bends, and I really resonate with your idea about that. The fact that you can do something doesn't mean it's good for you, and that you should be doing it for years. And that's something I didn't know for like 10 years ago, and now I'm suffering because of that. Alignment and anatomy have a really strong part of your teaching, and you call your flows alignment-based flows. What's the role of alignment and anatomy in yoga practice?
So people often get confused with what people mean by alignment. So for me, there is no correct alignment. There is not me saying, okay, in Warrior 2, your front foot should be here, your back heel should be in line with the front heel, and it should be 90 degrees. Because we all have different bodies. If you go to any room, even any yoga studio, and you look around, everyone is a different shape, everyone is a different background, and that's just what you can see. You can't see the shape of someone's joint. in someone's hip socket, you can't see how big the ball is and how big the socket is. You can't really see someone's spine. So I don't think there is a correct alignment, but there are alignment principles that we can then apply to unique bodies. And so that's what I want students to get. I want them to understand their body, understand a pose, and then apply that understanding to their practice. So it's not correct alignment, it is about principles that we can apply to unique bodies.
And that's quite a different perspective than the traditional Eastern one. Like most modern teachers focus on anatomy, on making everything accessible and safe, while some more original trainings actually focus you making the shape. Have you noticed this kind of a clash, or maybe just a difference in approaches?
There is a difference in approach, of course, but it's very easy to say, Ashtanga yoga is all about old tradition and they don't understand the body. I don't think that's true. I know very experienced Ashtanga teachers that know a lot about the body. And if you practice with them, they will keep you safe when you come to Lotus. But there's a lot of teachers that don't as well, in every style. There's lots of teachers that will force you into Lotus and really twist your knee. But so I don't believe that all yoga from India is not grounded in anatomy. There is lots of understanding by senior teachers. And of course, and for me, the best teachers are ones that change their teaching over time. So for instance, when BKS Iyengar was 30 years old, there was only certain understanding of the body available. But now we have x-rays, now the understanding of the human body changes. His teaching changed, and everyone's teaching should continue to change as we understand more about the body.
Nice. Yeah, thank you. Now I'm going to ask you the place and the importance of sequencing in the yoga practice. As you mentioned, Ashtanga, that's usually a fixed sequence, and some of your workshops really focus on correctly sequencing a practice. There are a lot of teachers who don't study that in their teacher trainings or just follow intuition. What is your view, the importance of properly thinking through and sequencing a yoga class, which is actually the topic of the workshop that's coming next week?
So in a 200-hour training, often people don't look at sequencing. And I think that's fair, because in a 200-hour training, there is so much to learn. You're really just touching the surface in a 200-hour training. So hopefully what I want people to have at a 200-hour training is a few sequences that they're taught to teach. And I think that is safe. But the problem is, some people then never get taught how to create their own sequences. And that's a problem. So when I did my 200-hour training, I got given 3 sequences, and that's all I taught. I taught those 3 sequences until I did more training. So this training is all about how to create your own sequences that are safe and effective. And I think we owe it to our students to create and think about our sequencing. It shouldn't just be, what should we teach today? What mood is anyone in? It shouldn't be making you up as you go along. We call ourselves yoga teachers. And if you go to a university, teachers, professors would not make it up as they go along. We are getting people to move their bodies and use your ways. We should be thinking about, what do we want to do? What do we want to teach people in our class? What mental or physical state do we want to cultivate? We've only got 75 minutes, so what area of the body should we focus on? What should we give the most attention? But also, how can we make sure we do something in every part of the body? How can we make sure there are back bends and folds and twists? And then also, we need to think about the sequencing arc. We don't want to do handstands in minute 1. We want to slowly warm up the body, move, work out how to teach people skill in their practice. and then let the practice evolve, then cool down slowly, make sure we open and close things. There's so much to think about. And when I plan a sequence, it might take more than an hour. It might take a few hours. But I really think we owe it to our students who are paying to be in a class with us, who want to be safe, who want to learn. For me, it's the most important thing.
Thank you for this answer. Can you give also more information if the workshop is actually going to be accessible for people who haven't gone a teacher training, or maybe even like a test for them to attend and then decide whether they are ready to start a teacher training in the future?
Yeah, so the workshop, let me tell you the format of it. The first thing we're going to look at is the importance of sequencing. Then we're going to begin to explore different options for how you sequence and the benefits and the pros and cons of each style of sequencing. Then we're going to look at everything that you might consider when you plan a sequence, like everything you would consider. And then we'll look at an example arc, and then we'll think about, I'll do some example sessions. It's a 5-hour training. I'm squeezing quite a lot in. There's a lot of information that I pass in this training. Like, to be honest, I could make it 20 hours. But my view is I'd rather as many people as possible get the chance to actually do it and learn. And I've taught this training online about 4 or 5 times. And it's always really popular and people get a lot from it.
Yeah, just to remind the teachers, this workshop is happening on the 2nd of May at 2:30 p.m. Bulgarian time, which is 12:30 British time. There will be a link in the description if you want to sign for that. I'll certainly do. As I missed your last 2 years ago, you were here. You had a 2-day sequencing workshop, which unfortunately I could not attend at the time. So I hope I would partly make up for that. Do you have other favorite parts of aspects of teaching that you really like and you find quite important?
So for me, my background is academic. And so I personally need stimulation. And the main reason I keep teaching and enjoy teaching is the understanding of the body and how to create effective sequences. That's the one thing that keeps me engaged in teaching yoga. And if that wasn't there, I'd probably still teach yoga, but I'd probably have another job as well. But yeah, that's for me. I don't think teachers need to be everything to everyone. Every city is full of yoga teachers, and there are more and more and more every year. There is not just one teacher in the village. And that means we can be free to teach in our own way. And that's what I do. I know some people don't like my teaching. It's not for them. They want something more spiritual, or they want classes where there's a playlist, or they want to do handstands every 2 minutes. But for me, I have my style, and it fits for some people, and that's all you need. And I always say to my students, don't just come to me. Come to 3 or 4 different teachers that offer you something different. Go to a class where the teacher lets you flow, if that's what you want. Have a teacher that teaches you spirituality, but have 4 or 5 teachers that offer something different.
I have always been taught to give some credit to my old teachers. Who are your teachers? The one you have learned the most and made you who you are?
So I guess the main teacher is Jason Crandall, and I've supported him on trainings. I'm actually mentoring on his advanced training at the moment. Michael Stone, the late Michael Stone, he passed away, was my more spiritual teacher, my meditation teacher. And I've had lots of other teachers on the way as well in various forms that have taught me different things on my journey. But I've been very lucky that, and as you say, I think it is important to honor your teachers. And I mention who my teachers are. And I think actually as students, it's important to do research when you choose a teacher. Like what is their background? Where have they taught? How long have they been teaching? Do they teach in respected places? Because of course now, although the world is full of yoga teachers, the world is also full of yoga teacher trainings. And there are some wonderful ones and there are some not so good ones. So I think it's always important when you pick a teacher, do your research.
Thank you for this answer. For among your many visits in Bulgaria and in Sofia, did you get a feeling of what are the kind of people who are going to yoga studios here? What are their levels or their preference?
Yeah. So obviously I've been to Yoga Vibe 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Maybe 3. I think 3 times. I've been once in the new studio and then twice, I think, in the other studio. But I've also filmed for Udaya a few times and met Bulgarian students there, and also at the festival 3 or 4 times. I feel like there's 2 dominant styles of student. So one is these students that have done yoga for a long time, who tend to be more kind of Ashtanga. So a lot of the older students tend to have been doing it for a long time. And there's also quite a lot of kind of athletic students, I think, in Bulgaria. Like a lot of strong or very flexible former dancers but there's a good mix. And I think every time I come to Bulgaria, there is a bigger mix of people in front of me, which is a good thing. I think America and Canada are way ahead, and then some cities like London have had yoga for a long time. But then in a lot of Europe, it's interesting to see, because I teach in many cities, what stage the yoga is in that country. Like whether it's still like Bikram in some countries, and Bikram is the dominant yoga, and everyone just does Bikram, or in cities like what's a good example? Like in Switzerland and Zurich, there's now lots more of a diversity. In Slovenia, where I've been a few times, there's still lots of kind of strong Ashtanga, and that's what everyone is doing. It's interesting to see where each city is in terms of what's on offer.
Yeah, it's here is still growing trend, but as with many other things, we are following what's happening in the West and the trends that are coming from there. You have a charming British accent, which almost everyone has noticed. Have you had comments about when you're traveling internationally? Do people like it? Do they struggle to understand you?
So I don't have a normal London accent. So my accent is actually from a place called Birmingham.
Yeah.
But if I spoke in a strong accent, I would speak like this, and that's what I'd talk about, and no one would understand me.
Yeah.
So that is the Birmingham accent. But I went to a private school, and I went to Durham. So over time, I've never had a strong accent. And so in the UK, you wouldn't say that I have a charming British accent. My accent isn't charming. But when I teach internationally, it does. I sound charming, but also I do try to speak slower when I teach internationally. Wherever I teach, I have a slower voice, and I've become better at doing that over time. Like being selective of the words I use, not using too many regional words. And generally speaking, everywhere I've been, people understand, it's fine. And what I found, which is quite humbling, is that often even where people that the older people perhaps in studios, even if they don't feel confident to speak English, they can understand everything I say. And it makes me feel bad that I don't speak any other languages. I've tried to learn lots over the years. The only language I was good at was Latin. And I'm quite good at Latin. So that means that when I go to certain countries, I can read signs and kind of translate it. But not Bulgarian. Latin is no help for Bulgaria.
Yeah.
For Bulgaria.
Yeah, you can go and speak with someone in the Roman Empire, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, yoga is quite universal language anyway. So I find everything I've seen from you quite accessible. So
yeah, I do make an effort to slow it, and it is sometimes harder online, because when I teach online, I don't really do. I don't normally demo poses anyway. Online, I demo more, but still not that much. But sometimes when I teach international classes online, sometimes there are one or two people that struggle because they can't see anyone else. They're just looking at me, and they do struggle. So I think I was teaching this morning to multiple countries, and someone left quite quickly. I said at the start of class, "Come to lie on your back," and she was in Warrior 3. And I was like, no, stop, Shavasana. And it took me 5 minutes to get her to actually just lie down.
yeah, quite. Well, I wanted to ask you how has been this past year. It has been life-changing for most of us, and we all underwent a lot of changes, both personally and professionally. Has your teaching, and how did it must have changed, but how has it changed?
Yeah. Well, I was in a situation where I didn't get any money from the government, just based on my setup as a business. So most yoga teachers got some government support. I got nothing. So from the first day of lockdown, I was doing Instagram classes. Within a week, I'd set up an online yoga platform. So I haven't stopped working. I'm still teaching 13 classes a week online, filming classes for my online platform every single week. I've got the podcast. I've also moved house. Holly and I left London. So we lived in a 1-bedroom flat in London in a nice area. And we now have bought a 4-bedroom cottage in the countryside. And I've been painting and decorating that and building. Like today, just before this, I was painting the outside of the chimney and the roof.
Yeah,
and
it's getting wonderful. We are following some of the stories that you upload daily.
Yeah.
So it's a really good job. Well done. But do you think this change would have happened if it wasn't for the lockdown?
No. So the reason, I don't think I'd have moved out of London yet. So one reason we left was just we realised we need space. My wife Holly is a teacher, and both of us were teaching in a 1-bedroom flat, and it's no garden. If one of us is teaching, the other one is hiding in the bedroom. it's too much. It was way too much. So one reason we realised we want space, we want garden. We don't want to live in a big city. And also, well, Holly was pregnant. So Holly did have a miscarriage, but Holly was pregnant. And we thought, do we want a family in London? I mean, actually, we wouldn't want to bring up, even if you had a pushchair, we couldn't get a pushchair upstairs. So we thought we want our future to be slightly outside. So I live now 40 minutes by train from London. So I intend to teach in London 4 days a week. And then teach online as well. And we'll see how the future goes. But it's so nice to have space and land and garden and trees.
Certainly. And it's very awe-inspiring how you, like whatever the circumstances, you stayed proactive and kept positive and are teaching so much, not giving up, doing your best and taking the most of the situation.
Yeah, I think my view is that you have to do what you have control over. I don't have control over COVID or the future. There's no point me just sitting down and blaming anyone or hoping someone's going to help me. I have the power to build an online platform, and I spend every night doing it. Or I have the power to teach classes, even if they don't make much money. I can just keep teaching and hoping. So that's my view, is you get from life what you put in. Of course, people have different advantages, and whether that be money or house or family. I had the money because I had to buy a good camera, of course. But but I literally haven't stopped working. Even now, if I'm not teaching, I'm painting the house. If I'm not painting the house, I'm recording the podcast. Every day I wake up at 6. I go to bed at 9 o'clock, quite early, but I'm pretty much working all day doing something. And even now, so podcast, then I've got to teach a class now. I've taught a 90-minute class already today. Normally on a Sunday, I teach a workshop as well. Lots going on.
Wonderful. No rest day. Good job. Do you think we will go back to the same kind of normal life, and the hosts in yoga studios would be as full as they used to be in the past? Or you don't?
Yeah. No, I do. I think there'll be a change. I think there's always going to be a demand for online yoga. So the main studio I teach in, all of my classes will be live streamed as well. Every single class will be filmed and spread out there. Because, I think some people have realized actually it's nice to do it from home. I don't need to go in the shower. I don't need to wait around the city. I can just go home, get changed, do a class, leave the class, and just immediately go and have a shower and have some food. So I think there's also going to be a demand for connection again, and people want to see each other. But I think there are going to be permanent changes, like teacher trainings, for instance, online. People are now being able to train with some of the best teachers in the world from their living room. Like Jason Crandall, my teacher. Previously, you'd have to go to America or the UK to train with him, but now people from all over the world can train with him.
Yeah. We have a podcast. It's, I think, about an year old.
Yeah, pretty much.
Are leading it. Are we going to keep that after the lockdowns and everything?
Well, we started it before lockdown. We didn't start it to do with COVID. So It wasn't related to COVID. We started it, then COVID kind of happened maybe on episode 2. So we've had a wonderful range of people. That the whole point of the podcast, it's called Honestly Unbalanced, is that the wellness industry is that the people in it who are succeeding aren't necessarily as happy and balanced as you think. So we're chatting to yoga teachers, to weightlifters, to chefs. We're learning about their specialist area, but also learning about the hard work, the struggle, their coping strategies. And we've had so many wonderful people on there. Sometimes famous people, sometimes not. Like our last guest was a London dancer, like not super famous, like famous in his world, but just an incredible story of his background, his childhood, how he dealt with cancer. A really incredible story. So yeah, listen if you can. Do that with Holly. And Holly's like the opposite of me. Holly's very floaty and spiritual, and I'm very logical and analytical. And if you like that kind of music, by the way, Holly Husler, she's releasing songs now. Her first debut single is on Spotify. So if you just search for Holly Husler, it's called Moment with the Sun, and it's really beautiful.
Great. Thank you. Good luck with the podcast. Good luck to Holly. People can find her on Spotify or find you in social media, on your podcast, Honestly Unbalanced. And if you haven't already, you can check out the upcoming event workshop happening on the 2nd of May. And if you think you might benefit from that, please sign up. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much, Adam, for taking part in this episode and this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
See you, everyone, in the next episode of the Yoga Vibe podcast. Thank you, and bye-bye.